Hi, I'm the List Girl and welcome to my videographic journal.
Let's go!
Today's video is about me completing bucket list goal number 94 to read a Stephen King novel. I wanted to do this because I love reading and I love everything horror related. I started trying to attempt this goal back when I was about 22. I read halfway through Stephen King's Insomnia, but the book was so long that I never finished it. A novel does not need to be 1,000 pages long, Mr. King. That is so excessive. So I looked for a different novel with far less pages because when you're in a reading funk, the last thing you want to do is read a book with 1,000 pages. After searching through all of the options, which Mr. Prolific over here has a great number of options, to which I decided to read Pet Sematary. I found that the Audible audiobook was pretty amazing and the voice actor that read the book did really well at reading all the different characters with different voices, which is something that I really enjoy when I'm listening to a fictional book. The book itself felt slightly long in a couple of places, and that was even after I turned the audiobook speed up to ×2, which is something that I just do. I really enjoyed the plot and the characters were also really lovable. There were a handful of things that I was confused about, such as why the little girl somehow had future telling abilities, or why when Mr. Creed buried his son Cage in the pet cemetery, when he returns from the dead and goes for Judd, Mr. Creed's next door neighbor, why does he become Judd's dead wife, and why does she all of a sudden seem very rude and starts calling Judd a male whore? It just seemed a little bit out of character for who Judd's wife was. She was very sweet, she was very kind, she was very mellow and chill. Potentially could have been like some demonic presence pretending to be her, but if it was Judd's wife taking over Cage's body, it just seemed a little bit out of character and I was confused about that. But the thing is, I felt like the majority of the action only happened in the final hour of the book, and nothing ever really occurred throughout the rest of the book apart from the times that the protagonist, either with his family or with his neighbor Judd, visited the pet cemetery. When it comes to what I loved about the book, I really enjoyed the vivid descriptions of Victor Pascal's death and the cat's burial in the pet cemetery, like the adventure that Judd and Lois had to take to the pet cemetery to bury the cat. It was quite, I don't know, it added some adventure to the story. I quite liked how vivid Cage's death was in comparison to the cat's death, because the cat kind of just appeared dead. Like, you didn't see it happen, you don't know how it happened, it just, he was dead and that was it. Whereas like my heart sank with each step that Cage took, getting closer and closer to that highway road and the truck approaching. Like my heart, like it was deep into my stomach, and I feel like Stephen King really had to do that because not only does it show like the importance between the characters, but it also kind of helped you feel how the parents were feeling at that time and how like fast it must have all happened and how shocked and horrified they must have been at the time. And that's very important when it comes to books. Like, you need to put in that emotion, and I feel like in that scene Stephen King did really well to help, and me at least as the reader, definitely feel quite a lot of emotion at that time. I also really enjoyed the little stories that were put in between here and there between characters, such as when Rachel shares the story about her sister's last days and how she kind of lost the plot a little bit. It very much gave me Exorcist vibes. And the story Judd tells of the desperate father who buried his son after the war, and his son came back, but he was barely himself and he clearly was psychotic. I also quite like the creepy part where Lois is on his way to the pet cemetery with Cage's body, and the journey he has to make on his own with all of the shadows he sees amongst the trees and in the distance. Exactly what I came wanting to read. Saying that, I felt that the scene of him unburying cage from the original Sematary was slightly prolonged, about him losing his key like twice, and then neighborhood dog barking just because of his presence. Like, I just really just wanted him to get it over and done with, to be honest. So I felt like that scene was slightly prolonged. And to the question of whether I would personally bury one of my loved ones in such a place as the pet cemetery, to which I would have to say that maybe my response will one day change when I have to experience my parents moving on, which I really fucking hope is not anytime soon. But knowing what I know about death, having experienced it so many times from a young age, I'd like to be able to say that everything does happen for a reason. It really sucks and it hurts like a bitch, but I'd rather remember people as they were and cherish our memories together than have back only half of what that person was. In many aspects of our life, the world, God, fate, whatever you want to call it, makes a lot of difficult decisions for us, throwing things at us which we have no control over. I'd rather control the things that I can control than to worry about the things that I can't. And I know that's a very cliched quote, but sometimes cliched quotes are cliche for a reason, overused for a reason, because sometimes they're just fucking true. And you definitely can't control something like death. I'd love for us all to not have to ever experience such a thing, but unfortunately that is the reality of being born. You fucking die. I hate that about life, and every time I think about that, like, I was born, therefore I have to die, just the idea that one day I won't be here makes me feel sick. But reminders such as this book do make you think about how sudden it can be and how ugly reality can be. There are many ways in which I think things should stay as they are. If they're dead, they're dead. Sometimes I wonder if they're actually better off, because I do believe in life after death, and they still get to watch us grow and watch how our lives turn out without having to feel all the painful parts about living, both physically, emotionally and spiritually. But at the same time, my auntie, who passed away several years ago from a heart condition, she has missed being able to hold her grandchildren. Both her children have had children of their own, and I'm sure she feels some form of emptiness of not being able to meet them, feel them, smell their new baby smell, to support and advise her own children of how to be parents. And despite all the ugliness of life and the pains of life, I'm sure she would have wanted to have lived through that, but she couldn't. And so if I had the chance to bring loved ones back from the dead, I don't know if that's a question I will ever be able to answer. But a question that I can answer is that I gave this book 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. And yes, I would highly recommend it if you want to think really hard about deep topics whilst enjoying a lot of creepy shit. I am very happy to take yet another little number off of my bucket list. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please hit that like button below if you have enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments whether there was some sort of way to bring back loved ones from the dead, if you would take that chance or if you leave it. I am quite interested to know what your answers are. But I am the list girl, and just before I log off, I have just one question for you. What is your next adventure?